Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal Podcast. I am your host, Scott Brady, and I am here with my co-host, Matt Scott. And what are we going to talk about today, Matt?
Talk about what we've been driving, I guess. We've I don't know. We've been driving a bunch of different stuff. New vehicles.
Yeah, new vehicles on the market.
Yeah, I guess we're lucky enough to have early access to the Gladiator Mojave, which is pretty cool. I have been driving a Ram 1500 limited eco diesel, and you've been driving some new stuff too.
Yeah, the new AT4 Yukon. We drove the new Nissan Titan. Of course, you and I both drove the Defender. I've had
Which is definitely worth chatting about now that you can actually get one.
That's right. And I've been spending a lot of time with the Ford Ranger that was completely modified by ARB. So what we want to do is start maybe once a quarter or so. We're going to do these little mashups where we talk about the new vehicles that we've evaluated for editorial and what are our pros and cons for each one. And these will be pretty short, little digestible podcasts on the new trucks on the market. So what did you think of the Mojave?
You know, I liked it. For those who haven't listened to previous podcasts, I was a really early adopter of the Gladiator platform. I was at the press launch for it. I want to say that was like February and March of 2019. We went and did a little off-road demonstration, did a road demonstration prior to that. And on the way back to the hotel that everything was based off of, I was on the phone with my local Jeep dealer. Do you have one? I want one. I got it. I had one of the first ones. I just hit 20,000 miles on that.
It looks yesterday. So good too.
Yeah.
You pulled in on it today and it's like, that thing looks so good.
Yeah. It's, we have a dedicated podcast to that truck, but that's our adventure vehicle. It's not something that I use as a daily driver. I'm not commuting on it. It's for Baja, it's for Moab, it's for remote places, and not even a check engine light in 20,000 miles. So I'm a huge fan of the platform. And I think what the Mojave does is it really aligns the vehicle more with people who are less interested in technical terrain and more interested in, desert terrain, wide open terrain. I mean, for somebody that's driving the vehicle daily, the suspension on the Mojave is definitely
really nice.
It has a more substantial hood. The thing that I really liked about it, I loved the interior. They put a little bit more sporty steering wheel on it. Kind of some more perforated leather. It's just nice orange accents. The one we had, I want to say they call it pumpkin orange.
It's definitely pumpkin. Yeah.
It's really orange, and I'm a fan of orange. But it was a little bit maybe too orange. But
yeah, it seemed like Jeep was sending us like the entire Skittles colorway over a series of a couple of weeks.
But I have to say that the Gladiator is great. This has a more substantial frame. I want to say they added some high strength steel in some critical areas. It has, I guess what's cool is that it has a cast iron front axle. So it eschews the aluminum knuckles that are, I guess, an issue if you're really, really moving in these things. It's cool. I guess for
but you delete the front locker, right?
You do not get a front locker. You get a rear locker. You do not get the electronic sway bar disconnect, and you get I want to say it's 2.7 to 2 low range rather than the Rubicon's stunningly low 4-to-1, which I think we could both argue is almost too low.
Well, if you have a manual transmission, the 4-to-1 is a great thing.
Yeah.
If you're doing a lot of very technical driving, obviously the 4-to-1 is a great thing. What I find the biggest problem with the 4-to-1 is if you're in mixed terrain, sand and mud in particular, also snow, if you need to reverse with any kind of speed, you're stuck with this very low wheel spin. So if you need to reverse out of a mud hole and you've got a 4-to-1, you just can't get the tires spun up enough to clear out the mud. So I prefer a 2.7 to 1 low range in the Wrangler for almost everything but extreme rock crawling.
Yeah. I have to say if this was a vehicle that was available when I was buying it, I bought the Gladiator Rubicon. I probably wouldn't buy the Mojave. It's about the same price as the Gladiator Rubicon. I'll be honest, I don't use the front locker that often, but it's nice to have. The thing that I do use a lot is the electronic sway bar disconnect. You can use that anytime you're in four-wheel drive high. It just drastically improves the ride quality of the vehicle off road.
A lot less head toss. It allows the suspension to move more freely. I think it also greatly improves stability of the vehicle because you're keeping tires in contact with the terrain.
For somebody that may not be doing more technical stuff, that is going to put 35-inch tires on it, let's say, I think the Mojave is great. The remote reservoir shocks they used are fine. I mean, it's limited only by the architecture of the vehicle. Solid axle can only do so much. I thought that the off-road performance was probably still worse than in high speed than mine, but I'm on 37s and I have, some fancy Kings, which are probably a better shock, but it doesn't have to meet the OE standards that obviously FCA, or what is FCA called now?
Yeah, Chrysler. Yeah.
No, they have a new name.
Oh, I don't know.
Look it up. It's interesting. But yeah, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Great option. It's cool to see Jeep dialing into little areas, with that V8 concept that they showed with the 6.4. I have to think that engine in a Mojave would be a lot of fun.
And I think that's what's coming. I think that Jeep is now getting some pressure, some competitive pressure, but they've already got such a foundation to work from that they can salt in these things that they never really, we've always wanted V8s. We've always wanted diesels. Yeah. And before they didn't have a reason to, because this was the only option. Now they've got some competition and they're just now opening up the catalog and saying, all right, we're going to throw in a V8, and a bunch of people get excited and they buy a Wrangler instead of something else.
Yeah. I mean, I love the I don't know. Let me start over here. The 3.6 that is in the Gladiator is fine. It's reliable. It's a proven motor. It's cheap to service. I think for international travel, that's probably the one to go with. The diesel, which we're going to be driving. We get it, in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, we get the diesel Gladiator.
I'm sure it's going to drive great. I do still have questions on it in terms of long-term reliability. The engine just prior to that, which is the same basic structure, I had friends that had that in the 1500 with limited success. But yeah, I'm just excited to see the Gladiator platform grow. It's so good for overlanding. And
it's a perfect hit. They literally nailed it.
Just hit 20,000 miles on my personal one. I paid full price for it. I didn't get any discounts or anything. I was that enthusiastic about it. And I have vehicle ADD, as some of our readers will know. Still have it, not planning on selling it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That says something when you hold on to a vehicle for more than a year.
I just renewed the registration.
Wow. Commitment. You're going to be okay?
Yeah. I might put a ring on it. But I don't know. Nice. It's good. Defender.
Yeah, I did like the Mojave. I think for me, it's trying to be something that it's not. And for people who want a Mojave that is a little bit more go fast, it works. But you're always going to be dealing with the weight of a solid front axle.
Yes.
It will never respond as effectively as independent at high speed. There's a reason why race trucks have independent suspension. And it's just, you have to know that. You have to understand that and say, okay, I really want solid axle. I really want a Gladiator. But to think that it's going to perform like a Raptor, it's just not. Physics don't allow it.
I think that there are advantages to a solid axle for aggressive desert driving. I never have to worry about my ground clearance changing, right? I don't have a differential that is rapidly
with every impact,
coming up and down and getting closer to the dirt. That's nice. They're way easier to lift. Again, I have a factory 2-inch lift on mine with 37-inch tires. So like, let's say Ranger or a Tacoma, there is virtually no way to fit 37s on that vehicle without substantially modifying it. And then you're talking Heim joints and you're talking all this kind of stuff, and they're not going to drive good. They're not going to have the reliability and durability that you need.
Yeah, if you want 37s on a pickup, buy a Gladiator. So yeah, I mean, like,
I don't know. I would put money that even with a camper, my Gladiator is way more proficient in high speed stuff than, let's say, ZR1, because they have to deal with those little, or not ZR1, that's the Corvette, the ZR2, they have to deal with 31-inch tires.
Yeah.
And maybe if you're lucky, you can fit 33s.
Yeah. 37s do forgive a lot of sins. That's
exactly.
for sure. So I also had the diesel Wrangler for a little bit. So this is the first time for us to really talk about the diesel drivetrain in a Wrangler. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
The consideration obviously is international travel where you don't have access to ultra low sulfur diesel, but for driving around in Prescott, we're at 5,200 feet. I have a turbocharged motor with really good torque. I towed a Brooder trailer with it, and that little Jeep, I was getting 25, 26 miles a gallon, legitimate. And I don't drive.
Yeah, you're
gently.
just driving it.
I'm just driving and getting that kind of gas mileage. This is the thing I love about the diesel Wrangler. It's the vehicle we always wanted. We always wanted solid axle Wrangler with lockers and sway bar disconnects and can fit a 33-inch tire from the factory and has a diesel motor. We've always asked for this vehicle. We now can buy it. And to me, even if I don't buy one personally, I think it is so cool that it's finally available.
I think what Jeep does really, really well is, aside from the V8s and the diesels, which we're now getting, they listen to their customers, and I've always appreciated that. But yeah, what better? It's the dream team.
It really is. The fact that in 2020 we can get a diesel solid axle Wrangler with lockers, sway bar disconnects, and 33s,
and you can take the roof off and the doors off and pull the windshield down.
I think we're kind of in the golden age of overland trucks. Certainly in the early 90s that also existed with 80 series and diesel G wagons and all of that, but right now it's the golden age again, just a little different.
I don't even think that there's a comparison. I know most Americans still look at, diesel Land Cruisers and Hiluxes and this as, they've kind of, there's a folklore to them and a bit of a myth going on. They're not that great. I went out and as soon as I could, I got the turbo diesel 80 when you could import it, and probably going to be for sale soon because the Gladiator is just so much better. The Gladiator gets technology better gas mileage than the diesel.
Yeah, the technology has improved. At the time, those vehicles were the hallmark of reliability, but manufacturers have figured a lot of this reliability stuff out.
Electronics have improved.
Yeah, not just Toyota is reliable anymore. Most manufacturers are very reliable now, and that's pretty exciting to see. All right, and then you had a diesel Ram 1500.
Yeah, the diesel Ram 1500 Limited, which I loved it, to be honest. I've always loved that new 1500 platform. It rides spectacularly.
Did it have the airbag suspension?
That one had air suspension, so you could raise it or lower it. The interior is like, I'm going to say this, it is on par with a lot of the Land Rover, Range Rover products, where they're a little bit more minimalist. The Limited package is more embellished. They have some weird, Western themed stitching going on that I'm kind of like that's a little bit tacky. But the materials on the inside, the leather is it's a really, really, really nice place to be. It handles pretty good. The diesel in that vehicle wasn't, the focal point would be the economy, the fuel economy that I could return.
Sure.
It wasn't a powerful engine.
So you missed the Hemi in that particular application.
Laura's dad has a basically identical truck. He has the Limited, but he has the 5.7, and I think the 5.7's more interesting to drive. I think the diesel obviously gets phenomenal gas mileage, but I think what I walked away from is that as a technology demonstrator, to see the diesel, to see the air suspension, to see the quality that company is able to achieve, it leaves me really, really excited for this Grand Wagoneer that they've been teasing.
Soon. It's coming soon.
And boy, I have to say that, yeah, 8 out of 10 for me for that Limited. It's not, listen guys, we're not talking here about the, I know Overlanders kind of like the more basic things. cloth interior or whatever, because it's more of a purposeful vehicle. But I'm just talking about what that company can do. And it was great.
A nice daily driver.
I mean, it was a black truck in the summer in Arizona. So the AC wasn't super great, but you press a button and the seats start blowing cool air at your derriere. And it was, I really liked it.
It was a nice looking truck.
It was a lot better than the Nissan Titan that I drove immediately after. It was like, it was going from something very significant to,
something with some challenges.
People pay for this. And they weren't that different in price point, which was the interesting thing for me.
Yeah.
So,
very valid. And then another long-termer that we've had, we got the ARB outfitted Ford Ranger, and
which looks great.
It does. It looks great. And they've addressed essentially all the things that I didn't like about the stock Ranger, principally the rear suspension, rear shock tuning, with the new Old Man Emu on there, the multi-leaf pack. It's a nice little truck. I drive it almost every day, and I've kind of fallen for it. I mean, I'm impressed that it's got a Ford Motorsports tuner on it.
Oh yeah.
And it starts pushing I think it's 317 horsepower now. And out of I would have never thought to buy a 4-cylinder
10-speed transmission.
It's so good.
People seem to fail to realize that, yes, cars have become more powerful, but it's really the gearbox technology that is making these things so drivable. I had that gearbox in my Raptor, and people, well, that's going to break. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It didn't break. It's been great. And having 10 different ratios to choose from makes that 317 horsepower. I mean, that thing's pretty quick.
It's really quick. It's noticeable. And again, we're at 5,200 feet, and I'm getting great performance out of the truck. So there's a lot of things that I like about the vehicle, principally the suspension. ARB has done a nice job because they're starting to partner with Ford more. They did a nice job with the front bumper. It's really going to be fun to see what that ARB partnership results in, particularly around the new Bronco. So the fact that ARB is working that closely with Ford, I think we're going to see a lot more Ford factory solutions that feature ARB products.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good thing. Good thing for the end consumer.
I think so. All right, let's do a little update on Defender.
Yeah. So Defender is now available. I actually saw one at the dealer. I want to say the initial run of them has sold out. And obviously the world, when we drove the Defender in Namibia in February or March, the world has drastically changed. So, it's fascinating just to see them out there. When we were up in Colorado last month, there was 3 or 4 of them running around in Telluride, and, I'm pretty excited. I keep going online and I keep doing the vehicle configurator, and I love the fact that they actually went to production with the built-in air compressor. They went to production with the shower system. There's a lot of really cool things about that car.
And we've got a couple of them that are going to be showing up here in the next few weeks. This podcast will come out after we're talking about this, but we're doing a television show with the Defender. So I'm pretty excited to see how it is to use that vehicle for a week in the field when I've got the keys all to myself. So
my favorite thing on the Defender, I'll be honest, I think the styling of it on the exterior is very forgettable. Like they use a lot of just these kind of gentle curves, and there's nothing. I guess I still look at an off-road vehicle and I want a little bit of aggression, but I love the interior.
Really good.
It's so practical. Like I find when I get into a car these days, I have this big cell phone because phones are not getting smaller. I have this wallet that has all this junk in it. I have my keys. I have this, I have that. There's places to just like download all your crap into in the Defender. Like there's a really nice pocket next to for left-hand drive vehicles, or we'll talk about left-hand drive vehicles. On the left-hand side, there's a little pocket you can put your stuff. There's, the dash is essentially hollow on it. Mm-hmm. It's a really practical vehicle.
I think it's one of the best interiors currently available for
hands down
vehicle-based travel, no question. And it's also class-leading ride quality. We did do a full podcast on the Defender. Matt and I certainly have our reservations around the front end styling, but I think all of that's going to be addressed with the aftermarket. Bumpers are going to come out.
It's already starting to.
Things are going to make that front end not forgettable. It's going to make it memorable, and it's going to make the vehicle even more suitable for backcountry travel. What we really need to see with Defender is these things out in the field, proving to be reliable over a period of time. And then I think you're going to start to see sales increase within the Overland crowd.
I mean, we didn't really have any major issues with places we took them.
No.
And we were in pre-production vehicles. Obviously, Land Rover's watching those things like a hawk. But it'll be interesting. I believe I said in my editorial, like, if it's reliable, it will be one of the greats. And they've done everything that they can.
I think they have. They really put a lot of thought and passion into that vehicle. You can see it. All right. Well, then now
AT4, I guess.
So this podcast will come out after the embargo, which is good. So I've had access to the AT4 Yukon. GMC has decided to permeate the AT4 option model across all of their four-wheel drive vehicles. So anything with an AT4 badge is kind of like a trail-rated Jeep. So it gets larger diameter tires. It gets a more aggressive tread pattern. It gets some underbody skid plating. They do some work to improve the approach and sometimes the departure angle. It gets some unique styling as well. And then they also usually include some kind of a driver selectable off-road mode as well. This Yukon had 4-stage airbag suspension. It had excellent ride quality. I think that's one of the huge benefits of the airbag systems. And then we also get a much bigger payload. This is a 7 or 8 passenger vehicle. So because it can haul so many people, it has to have a really high.
Replace that with gear.
Yeah, it has to have a really high payload. It drove nicely, and the 5.3 was a little underwhelming on the power. The AT4 is only available with a 5.3. Unfortunately, because of the front end bumper architecture, you're not going to see the diesel in the AT4. But the 5.3 is totally adequate. It's kind of like the 3.6. It works. And really nice, comfortable vehicle. I did the whole Mogollon Rim Road with it. We did some trails in Sedona with it. Very comfortable vehicle. I really liked the suspension. This was a pre-production unit. I did not see the effectiveness out of the traction control that I would have expected. So maybe that will be resolved for production. I think we need to get a hold of a production unit before we have final say on that. But I was a little disappointed in the traction control performance out of it.
And I guess this is kind of, I know GM has had the ZR2.
Yep.
But this is really their first kind of more general foray into actually offering products maybe more targeted towards an adventure or off-road enthusiast, because they really haven't.
They've not had it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I've always kind of thought they have the Corvette and they have the Camaro, but that was where most of their excitement went. It's cool to see more options for people. Like you said, we're pretty much in the golden age of Overland.
Now they have the Bison, which is one of the best mid-sized trucks that you can buy today. Diesel, front and rear lockers, great suspension. It's certainly one of the high marks within the GM lineup. But what I'm excited to see is this attention from the manufacturers towards off-road performance. It's one of the fastest growing and most lucrative segments of automotive today, because they see so much pressure from EVs. So they're going to make lifestyle vehicles that still have pistons in them. And that's going to be off-road for a while. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the off-road innovation.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're fun to tinker with. They're just fascinating vehicles. So
do we want to talk a little bit about the Nissan?
Yeah, I guess
maybe just a little bit.
Yeah. Listen, there's nothing wrong with the vehicle.
Nissan Titan is what we're
Nissan Titan SL. It's like the Costco of luxury pickup trucks is how I'm politely trying to say it. Looking at what they were actually selling for, because pickup trucks are confusing in that regard. You can have pickup trucks that have a $70,000 sticker, but they're actually selling for mid-50s. So, the problem is that what they're actually selling for is you're comparing it to F-150 King Ranches. You're comparing it to F-250 Lariats. You're comparing it to 2500s. You're comparing it to very well-equipped Ram 1500s. And it just doesn't play ball with them, unfortunately. They have that new, they call it the Endurance V8. The motor was fine. The transmission just didn't seem to be very refined. But it actually handled pretty well, I think.
Yeah, my experience was if you drove that vehicle conservatively, it did not feel like it performed well. If you started to really push it, the motor needs to rev, the transmission needs to know that you're alive and you're getting after it. Off-road, the vehicle just struggled. It's really not an off-road vehicle. They don't really have a package that's suitable for that. There are other options.
Well, they do have the Pro 4X model, but I guess there's so many good American pickup trucks. And then there's the Tundra, which is as equally outdated. I don't know.
Nissan, they try so hard and the people at Nissan are such good people, but they need to interject some performance into these lineups in order to remain relevant as EVs start to take control. So if you don't play ball with demonstratable performance, real functional components of these vehicles that make them exciting or make them play ball with the others in the space, I think that Nissan will continue to struggle.
Yeah, I guess I've always seen Nissan as kind of, I don't want to call it a budget brand, but I mean,
good quality vehicles, lots of reliability.
But they're just not competitive on price is why I would have a hard time recommending that vehicle. I'm sure it's reliable. The build quality was just fine. They just need to interject some excitement into it, or they need to adjust the pricing that you see on MSRP, and that will bring the model into the interest of the consumer buyer. Like the Frontier is a great option because they're affordable. You can get into them
totally legit
affordably. So
my favorite Nissan for sure is the Frontier.
Take a look at the Frontier,
So these are some of the new vehicles. We have a Power Wagon coming. We've got a diesel Gladiator coming. I'm testing even an all-wheel drive Ford Transit right now. So there's going to be a lot more to talk about in the next episode. And we thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time.